Good evening. The Kartarpur Sahib Corridor that connects Gurudwara Dera Baba Nanak on the Indian side with Gurudwara Darbar Sahib in Pakistan was reopened for pilgrims today. The decision of the Government of India to reopen the corridor just days before the birth anniversary of Shri Guru Nanak Dev Ji after a closure of almost 20 months on account of the COVID-19 pandemic is being wholeheartedly welcomed by the Sikh community. That is our top focus tonight. I'm Manman Bhattacharya. First up, the headlines. Kartarpur Sahib Corridor reopens for pilgrims after remaining closed since March 2020. Members of the Sikh community expressed gratitude to the Government of India. The first batch leaves to pay obeisance at Gurudwara Darbar Sahib through the Kartarpur Corridor. India hits out at Pakistan at the UNSC meeting, says Pakistan has an established history and policy of harbouring, aiding and actively supporting terrorists, calls upon Pakistan to immediately vacate all areas under its illegal occupation. At counter-terrorism meeting in Paris, India and France share the resolve to stand together in the fight against global terrorism. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addresses the inaugural session of the 82nd All India Presiding Officers Conference, proposes healthy time, healthy day for quality debates in the House, also proposes a one nation, one legislative platform, says traditions and systems of the houses of our legislatures should be inherently Indian. The 24th edition of Bengaluru Tech Summit gets underway in Bengaluru. Over 30 countries are participating in the summit virtually. Israel's Prime Minister and Australian Prime Minister joined the summit virtually. Scott Morrison announces a decision to establish a Consul General in Bengaluru. Cabinet approves provisioning of mobile services in uncovered villages of aspirational districts across 5 states of Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Maharashtra and Odisha. Also gives nod for continuation of Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana 1 and 2 and road connectivity project for left-wing extremism affected areas. Supreme Court resumes hearing on air pollution in Delhi NCR. Miffed over Delhi government's response. Top court asks some tough questions to the Delhi government. BJP too slams the Delhi government, says Delhi government is spending crores of rupees on advertisements but doing little to curb pollution. United States reiterates calls for an unconditional ceasefire in the Ethiopian conflict. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the U.S. is deeply concerned with the threat of the conflict spilling over to the Horn of Africa. Migrants move away from Belarus-Poland border as EU reacts to the migrant crisis. EU calls on Russia to push Belarus leader to resolve the crisis. Moscow denies any direct role in it. Our top focus tonight, 2 days before the birth anniversary of the first Sikh Guru, Shri Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the Government of India reopened the Kartarpur Sahib Corridor today, throwing it open for pilgrims. The decision of the government is symbolic of the respect for the founder of Sikhism and the Sikh community. This comes close on the heels of a meeting between a delegation of Sikhs and Prime Minister Narendra Modi, requesting him for reopening of the corridor. On the first day of resumption of pilgrimage, pilgrims went out to offer prayers at Gurudwara Darbar Sahib, the final resting place of Shri Guru Nanak Dev Ji in Pakistan.
After being closed on account of the COVID-19 pandemic since the 16th of March 2020, the Kartarpur Corridor has been thrown open for pilgrims starting Wednesday in view of the improvement in COVID-19 situation. With the reopening of the corridor 2 days ahead of the birth anniversary of the first Sikh Guru, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, Sikh pilgrims celebrated the decision by exchanging sweets on the Indian side of the border.
तो उनके लिए बहुत बड़ी ये बात है, खुशी की लहर है कि ये दोबारा खुल गया है।
बहुत खुशी का दिन है कि ये अपना हमारी सरकार ने इसको खोल दिया है। और ठीक है, जो कोविड की अपनी है वो भी साथ साथ चलेगा ही, लेकिन मेरे ख्याल से तो पूरा पंजाब का, पूरा हिंदुस्तान इससे बहुत ज़्यादा खुश है जी।
बहुत ही वेलकम स्टेप है, सब लोग इसका बहुत तहे दिल से बहुत शुक्रगुजार हैं पीएम का कि उन्होंने ये स्टेप लिया।
With the decks being cleared for visiting Gurdwara Darbar Sahib, the final resting place of Shri Guru Nanak Dev Ji in Narwal district of Pakistan, Sikh devotees in India were overwhelmed with emotion. Losing no time, the first group of pilgrims reached the historic Gurdwara Darbar Sahib in Pakistan on the very first day of the reopening of the corridor on Wednesday.
पहली बार चलिए, बहुत खुशी है, बेहद खुशी है जी।
परमात्मा खुला ही रखे, सानू इसे तरह ही दर्शन करवाते रहन गुरु रामदास जी की मेहर हुई है साडे ते, असीं तां जा रहे हैं।
ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਰਤਾਰਪੁਰ ਦਾ ਰਸਤਾ ਖੁੱਲ੍ਹਿਆ, ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਉਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਹੈ ਜੀ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਧਰਮ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਮੁਸਲਮਾਨ ਧਰਮ ਦਾ ਮੱਕਾ ਹੈ, ਸਾਡੇ ਵੀ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਇਹ ਨਨਕਾਣਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਤੇ ਕਰਤਾਰਪੁਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਧਰਮ ਦੇ ਸਥਾਨ ਨੇਗੇ। ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ ਜੋ ਇਹ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੇ ਖੋਲ੍ਹਿਆ।
Just days earlier, a delegation comprising Sikhs from various states had met Prime Minister Narendra Modi requesting him to reopen the corridor.
करतारपुर साहब कॉरिडोर जब शुरुआत हुई तो आपको मालूम है तमाम तरह के संकट आए, तमाम तरह की परेशानियां आई, उसके बावजूद भी नरेंद्र मोदी जी की सरकार ने एक मजबूत इच्छा शक्ति के साथ हमारे सिख भाइयों और बहनों की जो एक श्रद्धा है, एक तमन्ना रहती है वहाँ पर दर्शन की, अरदास की, उसको पूरा किया। इस बीच में कोविड पीरियड आया, कई कारण आए, उसकी वजह से बंद हुआ, फिर से शुरू हुआ। निश्चित तौर से पूरे देश में इसका न केवल सिख भाई बहनों ने बल्कि पूरे देश ने इसका स्वागत किया है और नरेंद्र मोदी जी के प्रति धन्यवाद है।
The decision triggered a wave of joy among Sikh devotees.
बहुत खुशी हो रही है, बड़ा अच्छा लग रहा है, सारे लोग बड़े उत्साहित हैं।
हाँ जी, बहुत वधिया लगा, केंद्र सरकार दा और पंजाब सरकार ने भी अपील की, बहुत वधिया लगा। और अहीं महाराज दे गुरु नानक साहब जी दे दर्शन करके आए हैं, लेकिन अगे तो नहीं जा पाए, लेकिन खड़े हो के तुसी ते ही वधिया, बहुत वधिया लगा।
Shiromani Gurdwara Prabandhak Committee expressed their gratitude to Prime Minister Narendra Modi for clearing the decks for Indian pilgrims to pray at the revered shrine. Simultaneously, a battle for appropriating credit for the reopening of the Kartarpur Corridor played out. Pakistan's official website on Kartarpur Corridor credited Punjab Pradesh Congress Committee Chief Navjot Singh Sidhu for opening of the corridor, triggering speculation that Pakistan was trying to influence public opinion in favour of one political party ahead of assembly polls in the Punjab state of India. Punjab Chief Minister Charanjit Singh Channi's announcement that the entire Punjab cabinet will be visiting the Sikh shrine in Pakistan is also being seen as a political gambit to appropriate credit. Kartarpur Corridor connects Dera Baba Nanak Gurdwara in Gurdaspur in India to Gurdwara Darbar Sahib, the final resting place of the founder of Sikhism, Shri Guru Nanak Dev Ji in Narwal district of Pakistan. On the 24th of October 2019, an agreement was reached between India and Pakistan to enable Indian Sikh pilgrims to visit the revered shrine in Pakistan. Starting Wednesday, COVID-19 guidelines are being implemented for the pilgrimage. Only those who are fully vaccinated and carrying a valid RT-PCR negative test report are allowed to go on the pilgrimage. Bureau Report, DD India.
And that brings us to our In Focus tonight. Sikh pilgrims hail reopening of Kartarpur Corridor. To talk about that, we have with us TCA Raghavan, former Indian High Commissioner to Pakistan and former DG ICWA, and Shekhar Raya, senior journalist. I welcome you both to Newsnight. I'll begin with you, Shekhar Raya. Is this yet another instance that shows that India respects its pluralistic traditions and religious sentiments and does all that is possible, uses all the venues to send out a message that it is all for democracy and for pluralism?
Indeed, you have just shown us how the pilgrims have reacted with joy and delight at this decision, which they probably thought would not be taken so fast. But considering the fact that 2 days from today, they will be observing the 552nd Prakash Parv, that is the birth anniversary of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. So there is a lot of sense of gratitude and extreme joy that they can actually visit this place, though there is a restrictions on the number of pilgrims who can go there, because till date, they were even thinking of, whether they should set up some binoculars so that people wish to just have darshan Of course, the corridor itself, the establishment of corridor itself in 2019 was a very big event, I would say, as far as the Sikh faith is concerned. And of course, there has been a persistent demand that the number of pilgrims who should be allowed to visit that place has been, there is a demand that it should be increased. Right now, we are told about 1,500 pilgrims may be allowed, but the demand is that more and more pilgrims should be allowed to go to that place. As mentioned by Mark in this report, that this is the final resting place of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. And the fact that the birthplace of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, which is in the Nankana Sahib, and his resting place, which is in Kartarpur Sahib or the Darbar Sahib itself, is a very significant in terms of the history and the religious faith of Sikhism. So therefore, definitely Sikhs are an important minority community of this country, and the speed in which the Prime Minister took the decision, after a delegation met, and particularly everybody thought because of the COVID restriction, probably this may not be allowed this year. But the fact that the decision has come just before the Prakash Parv has brought a lot of joy and a lot of, you can see how they are expressing their gratitude to the Prime Minister, to the Government of India. Munmun.
Absolutely. Ambassador Raghavan, India had proposed that the Kartarpur Corridor be built in the first place. It was former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee who made this proposal in 1999 when he took the bus to Lahore as part of the India-Pakistan Peace Initiative. Does this show that India is genuinely committed to the cause of honouring religious sentiments? And how does it reflect on India as far as the diplomatic circles is concerned?
Well, the opening of the corridor at a time when India-Pakistan relations were going through a very bad phase was an important development. And certainly it showed that both the government of India and, for that matter, the government of Pakistan were prepared to take steps which were not necessarily security related in their bilateral relations. I think the reopening of the corridor after a long gap is also a good development. Much like the original opening, this initiative also takes place at a time when India-Pakistan relations are not going through a good phase. To that extent, I think this is a very good step, and certainly both governments have to be congratulated, because this is not a step which either government can take unilaterally. It cannot be based on the decision either of the government of India or of the government of Pakistan. The fact that there is a minimal meeting of minds on a non-security related issue shows in fact the potentialities which exist for a further improvement in India-Pakistan relations. This is a step which is of course welcomed by many devout Sikh, because this has been a long-standing demand. You had referred to earlier initiatives which did not fructify, but in fact the demand and the requirement for it has an even older history. I think there is also a need to open up further in terms of people-to-people contacts, because there are a large number of other pilgrims of other faiths. There are many pilgrims in Pakistan who wish to visit religious shrines in India, and similarly there are other faiths in India which would also like to visit other religious shrines in Pakistan. And to the extent that we can build on this initiative, it would be a good development in India-Pakistan relations.
Right. Shekhar Iyer, would you say that India has tackled this issue with greater sensitivity? You would remember that at the time of the inauguration of the Kartarpur Corridor, there was a video that was released by the Pakistani side which had in it separatist elements like Bhindranwale, and India had objected to that. And we've seen the kind of wrangling also that took place over various issues like should there be a service fee, should there be visas, should there be passports, and Pakistan did change its position somewhat during the deliberations. But India though had some consistent positions. So would you say that India has been wiser in its handling of such a people-to-people issue? Even though talks were suspended on other issues, we kept people-to-people ties at the top of everything.
Yeah, Budpun, as Ambassador Raghavan pointed out, this is a very sensitive issue, and at a time when our relations with Pakistan not in the best of situation. So therefore, it had to be handled carefully, and we also know that Pakistan has its own reason for opening this corridor. and we are aware of some of the other dangers involved in, whenever our pilgrims go there and they come back. There are elements in Pakistan which still have their own hidden agendas when it comes to handling this pilgrims' arrival there and coming back here, interactions there. Those are extremely security sensitive issues which our authorities have been handling with great care and with great vigilance and surveillance, because in this kind of exchange of visits, definitely there are attempts, we have seen such attempts where, which does raise issues about sincerity of authorities on the other side of the border. Having said that, definitely this is a positive move. I mean, in the best of situation, people to people contacts are the best for improving any relationship. So therefore, one can only hope eventually this thorny issue of terrorism, particularly cross-border terrorism, which has greatly damaged the India-Pakistan relationship, can be resolved in the times to come, so that we can actually have a people-to-people contact without worrying about the security implications in allowing such contacts. But I do not know when that will come, because it is for authorities in Pakistan, both particularly the military actors, to realize that the ultimate good purpose of all concerned in this subcontinent will be served when we respect our borders, we respect the sovereignty, and also act together to curb this menace called terrorism. So I think those are greater issues, but for the moment, I think this reopening of the corridor is a great thing for particularly our Sikh brothers and sisters, and that it has happened in the 52nd Prakash Parv is a matter of great delight. And for the faithful, you can understand what it means in terms of their spiritual orientation, in terms of their spiritual, I would say, in terms of their spiritual evolution. Because this is a very important place, because Guru Nanak Dev Ji, in his last years, because he spent 18 years of his life here, gave some very important teachings to the faithful in this place. That is why this place is revered as a very important milestone in Guru Nanak's Dev Ji's history. Munmun.
Ambassador Raghavan, I'm reminded what MEA spokesperson Arindam Bagchi had to say almost a week back. He quoted two instances at which Pakistan denied permission to Indian pilgrims to visit the Sikh shrines there. This happened twice in June, he said, one on the occasion of Martyrdom Day of Guru Arjan Dev and second on the death anniversary of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. So if I ask you to draw a contrast between how India has tackled the issue of respecting religious sentiments and respecting the spiritual orientation of the Sikh community, like Shekhar ji said, and the attitude that Pakistan has shown, what would you say?
I would say that given the adversarial history of India-Pakistan relations, it is inevitable that every step will be attended with a certain element of controversy. I think statesmanship lies in rising above these controversial issues and trying to take small steps and then build on them with larger steps. The present development of the reopening of the corridor is, in this context, a very good move. I don't think we should necessarily try to view it with all the suspicions of the past. There will always be a large element of security considerations in any issue concerning Pakistan, but we should have confidence in our security agencies to take all the precautions. I think the fact that pilgrims are visiting after a gap is a good development. There have been numerous instances, as you point out, when they've been unable to visit in the past, and that is unfortunate. We should try to take steps that this minimal people-to-people contact, especially with regard to and fro movement of pilgrims to visit shrines, is ring-fenced from the larger contestations of India-Pakistan relations, because that will enable a certain base to be constructed from which you can move on to other areas. Because right now, India-Pakistan relations resembles in many ways a kind of a desert. There's virtually no economic exchange, there is no trade, your political relationship is at an all-time low. it's not a desirable state of affairs with a neighbor, regardless of all that has happened in the past. And we are all mindful and we are fully knowledgeable about all the issues which concern us with regard to Pakistan and the dangers which exist. But despite all those, I think to try to take steps forward is a good thing, and it's a good attitude of mind. So I would really say that it's a good thing that this development has taken place, and we should try to see how whether we can enlarge this and build up a momentum around it.
Right. On that note, we'll thank you, Ambassador Raghavan and Shekhar Iyer, for having joined us on this talking point on Newsnight tonight. Well, let's move on now. India hit back at Pakistan for misusing the United Nations platforms to propagate false and malicious propaganda against the country. Dr. Kajal Bhatt, the counselor and legal advisor at India's permanent mission to the UN, said Pakistan has been globally recognized as one openly supporting, training, financing and arming terrorists as a matter of state policy.
Pakistan has an established history and policy of harboring, aiding and actively supporting terrorists. This is a country which has been globally recognized as one openly supporting, training, financing and arming terrorists as a matter of state policy. The entire Union territory of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh were, are and will always be an integral and inalienable part of India. This includes the areas that are under the illegal occupation of Pakistan. We call upon Pakistan to immediately vacate all areas under its illegal occupation. India desires normal neighborly relations with all countries, including Pakistan. The onus is on Pakistan to create such a conducive atmosphere. Till then, India will continue to take firm and decisive steps to respond to cross-border terrorism.
India and France held the 15th meeting of their joint working group on counterterrorism in Paris. At the meeting, India and France reaffirmed their unequivocal condemnation of terrorism in all its forms and manifestations, including cross-border terrorism, and share their resolve to stand together in the common fight against global terrorism. In their joint statement, they exchanged views on threats posed by UN-sanctioned terrorist entities and individuals and emphasized the need for taking concerted action against all terrorist networks, including Al-Qaeda and ISIS or Daesh, as well as Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed and Hizbul Mujahideen, among others, including making sure that perpetrators of terrorist attacks are systematically and expeditiously brought to justice. Both sides underlined the need to ensure that Afghan territory does not become a source of radicalization and terrorism regionally or globally and is never again used to threaten or attack any country or to shelter, recruit or train terrorists or to plan or finance terrorist attacks in accordance with the UNSC Resolution 2593 adopted in 2021. So those were the takeaways from the counterterrorism dialogue that took place between India and France in Paris. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the inaugural session of the 82nd All India Presiding Officers Conference today, where he noted that democracy is not just a system for India, but is a part of life in India. He said, in fact, he gave the idea of one nation, one legislative platform, a portal that not only gives the necessary technological boost to India's parliamentary system, but also works to connect all the democratic units of the country. Here are all the takeaways from the event.
The All India Presiding Officers Conference, the apex body of legislators in India, is celebrating its 100th year in 2021. The 82nd All India Presiding Officers Conference has been organized in Shimla. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the inaugural session of the conference through a video link. Addressing the gathering, the PM said, "Democracy is not just a system for India, it's ingrained in our nature and part of life in the country." The Prime Minister proposed whether separate time for quality debates could be demarcated. He said these debates should be such where traditions of dignity and seriousness are scrupulously followed.
हम क्वालिटी डिबेट के लिए भी अलग से समय निर्धारित करने के बारे में सोच सकते हैं क्या? ऐसे डिबेट जिसमें मर्यादा का, गंभीरता का पूरी तरह से पालन हो, कोई राजनीतिक छीटाकशी ना हो, एक तरह से वो सदन का सबसे हेल्दी समय हो, हेल्दी डे हो। मैं रोज के लिए नहीं कह रहा हूं, कभी 2 घंटे, कभी आधा दिन, कभी 1 दिन। क्या हम इस तरह का कुछ प्रयास कर सकते हैं? हेल्दी डे, हेल्दी डिबेट, क्वालिटी डिबेट, वैल्यू एडिशन करने वाली डिबेट, रोजमर्रा की राजनीति से बिल्कुल मुक्त डिबेट।
The PM said that traditions and systems of the houses of our legislatures should be inherently Indian. He called for policies and laws of the government to strengthen the Ek Bharat Shreshtha Bharat thought. The PM proposed whether 3 to 4 days in a year could be reserved in the House for public representatives doing something special for society, to tell the country about this aspect of their social life.
हम अपने सदनों में बहुत सी विविधताएं करते हैं, जैसे प्राइवेट बिल लाते हैं उसके लिए समय निकालते हैं, कुछ सदनों में 0 ओवर के लिए समय निकालते हैं। क्या साल में 3-4 दिन, किसी सदन में 1 दिन, किसी समय 2 दिन ऐसे रखे जा सकते हैं कि जिसमें समाज के लिए कुछ विशेष कर रहे हमारे जो जनप्रतिनिधि है उनके अनुभव हम सुने, वो अपने अनुभव बताएं, अपने समाज जीवन के इस पक्ष के बारे में भी देश को जानकारी दे। आप देखिएगा, इससे दूसरे जनप्रतिनिधियों के साथ ही समाज के अन्य लोगों को भी कितना कुछ सीखने को मिलेगा।
The PM also stressed that we have to take the country to new heights, achieve extraordinary goals in the years to come. Highlighting the key aspects of the federal system, the PM said that with everyone's efforts, solutions to decade-old problems of the Northeast or completion of all the big projects of development have been completed in the past few years. The PM also proposed one nation, one legislative platform to connect all the democratic units of the country.
मेरा एक विचार, वन नेशन वन लेजिस्लेटिव प्लेटफॉर्म, क्या यह संभव है? एक ऐसा डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म, एक ऐसा पोर्टल जो न केवल हमारी संसदीय व्यवस्था को जरूरी टेक्नोलॉजिकल बूस्ट दे, बल्कि देश की सभी लोकतांत्रिक इकाइयों को जोड़ने का भी काम करें। हमारे हाउसेस के लिए सारे रिसोर्सेज इस पोर्टल पर उपलब्ध हो। सेंट्रल और स्टेट लेजिस्लेचर पेपरलेस मोड में काम करें।
Prime Minister Modi stressed that the next 25 years are very important for India. The PM urged the parliamentarians to realize only one mantra: duty, duty, duty. Newsnight Desk, DD India.
The Union Cabinet met today and took key decisions such as continuation of Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana or Rural Roads Scheme 1 and 2 and road connectivity project for left-wing extremism affected areas. Extension of up to September 2022 has been granted to help the Northeast and Hill states complete connectivity projects. The Cabinet also approved Uncovered Villages of Aspirational Districts scheme for provision of mobile services in such villages in 5 states. Here are the details.
In a major boost to enhance digital connectivity in rural areas, Union Cabinet chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi approved Universal Service Obligation Fund scheme for the provision of mobile services in uncovered villages of aspirational districts across 5 states that includes Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Maharashtra and Odisha. Mobile towers connectivity will be provided to more than 7,000 villages of 44 aspirational districts at an estimated cost of implementation of about 6,466 crore rupees, including operational expenses for 5 years. The project envisages to provide 4G-based mobile services.
7,267 गांव में मोबाइल टावर्स की और मोबाइल फ़ोन को जो सुविधाएं हैं वो वहाँ पर दी जाएंगी, मोबाइल टावर्स की कनेक्टिविटी दी जाएंगी। ये 4G पर आधारित मोबाइल सेवाएं उपलब्ध करवाने के लिए निर्णय किया गया है। इस प्रोजेक्ट पर लगभग 6,466 करोड़ रुपए का व्यय अनुमानित है और जिनमें हमारे कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर के साथ साथ 5 वर्षों के लिए ऑपरेशनल एक्सपेंडिचर का भी प्रावधान इसमें सम्मिलित है।
जितना संभव होगा वहाँ पे हम सोलर टावर लगाएंगे। दूसरी सबसे बड़ी बात, ये टावर कॉमन इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर होंगे, जिससे कि उसमें कल को 5G जब अपग्रेडेशन होगा तो 5G भी इसमें आ सके। इसके अलावा जहाँ संभव हो वहाँ FM रेडियो के भी इसमें इक्विपमेंट लग सके।
The scheme will further enhance digital connectivity useful for self-reliance. In addition, the villagers will also enjoy the provisions and benefits of e-governance laid by the central government. The Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs also gave its approval for continuation of Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana 1 and 2 up to September 2022 for completion of balanced road and bridge works. It also approved continuation of road connectivity project for left-wing extremism affected areas up to March 2023. For this, the Modi government has made a provision of 33,822 crore rupees, in which the central government will provide 22,978 crore rupees.
ट्राइबल क्षेत्र हैं, जनजातीय क्षेत्र हैं, विशेष तौर पर इनको इनका लाभ मिलने वाला है। जहां घने जंगल, पहाड़ और दरिया पार करके भी वहां पर सड़कें बनाने का काम किया जाएगा। इन प्रोजेक्ट्स के ऊपर कुल मिलाकर 33,822 करोड़ रुपए का व्यय अनुमानित है।
Roads falling under the area that are affected with left-wing extremism and tribal areas will also be benefited and will be built through dense forests and mountains as well as rivers. The project plan will benefit 44 districts of 9 left-wing extremist affected areas. In selected left-wing extremism blocks, habitations of 100 plus population were also to be provided connectivity, and out of this now only 2,432 habitations are balanced out of a total of 1,84,444 habitations. Also, out of total sanctioned road length of 6,45,627 kilometers and 7,523 bridges, only 20,950 kilometer road length and 1,974 bridges are balanced for completion. With this, a total of 1,12,419 crore rupees, including state share, is likely to be incurred from 2021-22 to 2024-25 for completion of all the ongoing interventions of Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana. With the latest announcements by the Modi government, tribal districts of Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Maharashtra and Odisha are likely to get benefited the most and will now have a greater participation in the making of self-reliant India. With inputs from Shailendra Mishra, Bureau Report, DD India.
Our correspondent Meghna Dev spoke to Union Communications and IT Minister Shri Vaishnav on the use of scheme for provision of mobile services in uncovered villages of aspirational districts across 5 states of Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Maharashtra and Odisha. Listening.
We are joined in by Union Minister Shri Vaishnav to talk more on today's cabinet decisions of enhancing connectivity in aspirational districts. Sir, a very important decision by the cabinet today that the aspirational districts and thousands of them, like the villages, are going to be connected with mobile connectivity, internet, data connectivity.
Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji has approved connecting 7,287 villages in 44 districts of 5 states. These were the areas which were still not covered by telecom service. So a package of rupees 6,466 crore has been approved. In the coming 4 to 6 months, we'll complete the tender process, and after that 18 to 24 months, we'll complete the installation and commissioning process.
There are difficulty of terrains also reaching to such places which are still unexplored and still do not have mobile towers. How do you think difficult a task it is? What is the kind of coordination that you are going to have with the state governments, for instance, to set up and make this a reality?
This will require a lot of coordination between the state government, with the Home Ministry, with the road sector, with the railway ministry, because wherever land is available easily, that location will have to be selected, and the location should also be such that it should cover maximum possible area.
If you can give us a breakup of Odisha, Andhra, and other states for that matter.
So Odisha, 10 districts, 3,933 villages. Andhra, 3 districts, 1,218 villages. Chhattisgarh, 8 districts, 699 villages. Jharkhand, 19 districts, 827 villages. Maharashtra, 4 districts, 610 villages. So total of 44 districts, 7,287 villages. We'll try to make sure that as many towers as possible are solar towers, green towers, so that diesel wouldn't be required.
Defence Minister Rajnath Singh inaugurated the 3-day Rashtra Raksha Samarpan Parv in Jhansi, a historic city in Uttar Pradesh's Bundelkhand area on the banks of the Pahuj River. The 3-day celebration will culminate on 19th November in Prime Minister Narendra Modi's presence. The Defence Minister addressed the crowd after inaugurating the event at the Muktakashi Manch, which is co-organising the event with the UP government. In his address, the Defence Minister said that Rani Lakshmibai has proven that women can play an effective role in defence and security matters if they get the right opportunities. He also said that the country is on its way to achieve strategic independence, and in the coming decade, defence equipment will be made in the country itself.
हमें अपने विकास की यात्रा भी तय करनी है और अपने को पूरी तरह आत्मनिर्भर भी बनाना है। और मैं यहाँ इस सभा के माध्यम से मैं देश की जनता को यह बतलाना चाहता हूँ, भारत ने जैसे राजनीतिक आज़ादी हासिल की है, भारत अब सामरिक आज़ादी भी हासिल करेगा। और 1 दशक के अंदर इसी भारत के अंदर ऐसे हालात पैदा होंगे कि हमारे सेना के जवानों के लिए जो हथियार इसके पहले तक और अब तक भी काफ़ी हथियार दुनिया के दूसरे देशों से आयात किए जाते हैं, बहनों भाइयों, आगामी 1-1.5 दशक में ऐसे हालात पैदा होंगे कि हम दुनिया के दूसरे देशों से हथियार अपने सेना के बहादुर जवानों के लिए आयात नहीं करेंगे, बल्कि भारत की धरती पर ही भारत के जवानों के हाथे वो हथियार बनाए जाएंगे।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will launch and dedicate to the nation multiple initiatives of the defence sector during his visit to Jhansi in Uttar Pradesh on Friday evening. Jhansi is hosting the Rashtra Raksha Samarpan Parv from Wednesday to Friday as part of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav celebrations. To give a thrust to Atmanirbhar Bharat in the defence sector, Prime Minister will formally hand over indigenously designed and developed equipments to Armed Forces Service Chiefs. These include handing over of Hindustan Aeronautics Limited designed and developed light combat helicopter to Chief of the Air Staff, drones or unmanned aerial vehicles designed and developed by Indian startups to Chief of the Army Staff, and DRDO designed and Bharat Electronics Limited manufactured advanced electronic warfare suit for naval ships to the Chief of Naval Staff. The Prime Minister will also lay the foundation stone of the 400 crore rupees project at Jhansi node of UP Defence Industrial Corridor. The project is being executed by Bharat Dynamics Limited for setting up a plant to produce propulsion systems for anti-tank guided missiles. Apart from this, Prime Minister Modi will launch the NCC Alumni Association. The association will further the aim of NCC and assist in nation building. As part of the event, the Prime Minister, a former NCC cadet himself, will be enrolled as the first member of the association. Vice President Venkaiah Naidu inaugurated the 24th edition of Bengaluru Tech Summit today. Asia's largest annual flagship IT event had Israel's Prime Minister Naftali Bennett and Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison joining the summit virtually. Over 30 countries are participating in the summit virtually. The summit aims to accelerate growth of innovations and digital technology in the country.
24th edition of Karnataka's flagship technology event, the Bengaluru Tech Summit 2021 kicked off in Bengaluru on Wednesday. The event was inaugurated by Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu, while Prime Minister of Israel Naftali Bennett and Prime Minister of Australia Scott Morrison attended the event virtually. Addressing the event, the Vice President said that the ultimate goal of technology is to bring happiness to people's lives.
No wonder that almost every major tech company in the world has Indian senior leadership. This speaks of the intelligence, knowledge, success, achievement here in this land. And we need to share it with others. And in the coming days, we should encourage more and more on knowledge economy, digitization to innovation.
While addressing the event virtually, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison said that technology is at the forefront of the comprehensive strategic partnership that the two countries signed last year. Morrison said that Australia is working on setting up a new Consulate General Office in Bengaluru.
The Centre will bring together Australian and Indian technologists, policy practitioners, academics, researchers and thought leaders, helping our nation shape technology governance so it aligns with our values and supports an open, inclusive and resilient Indo-Pacific region. The Centre will also promote investment opportunities and innovation between Australia and India in technology and amplify our policy influence globally. I'm pleased to let you know that Australia is also seeking to establish a new Consulate General in Bengaluru.
Prime Minister of Israel Naftali Bennett said in his virtual address that the future belongs to the innovators.
India is one of the biggest countries in the world with one of the biggest economies in the world and vast digital expertise. And Israel is one of the leading innovation nations of the world, the startup nations. When Indians and Israelis come together, amazing things happen. I hope to travel to India pretty soon and see what else the future holds for us.
The Global Innovation Alliance, India-US Tech Conclave and the Sydney Dialogue are other important areas bringing together the global leaders. India Innovative Alliance and India-US Tech Conclave initiatives have been introduced in the summit for the first time.
The Indo-US Conclave is first of its kind, happening for the first in the 24th edition of the BTS and as well as the Sydney Dialogue. In the Sydney Dialogue, our Honourable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji will be participating, and as well as the Prime Minister of Australia, Mr. Scott Morrison, will be participating.
The event was also addressed by Chief Minister Basavaraj Bommai, who urged global leaders to be a part of the state's growth story, ensuring that Karnataka and Bengaluru fly high. Over 30 countries are participating in the summit virtually. The Bengaluru Tech Summit, themed on driving the next, promises to deliver cutting-edge agenda in the domains of information technology, biotechnology and deep tech. It comes at a time when India puts emphasis on incorporating digital technologies in modernizing its economy.
The theme of this entire summit is driving the next. So obviously that will be the focus in the next 2 days. And Bangalore, rightly called the Silicon Valley of India, and this is providing the platform to technologies from across the world. With cameraman Subhash, Asha Khanam, DD India, Bangalore.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will deliver the keynote address at the Sydney Dialogue on Thursday. He will speak on the theme of India's technological evolution and revolution, with the address being preceded by introductory remarks by the Australian Prime Minister. The Sydney Dialogue is being held from 17th to 19th November. It is an initiative of the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. It will bring together political, business and government leaders to debate, generate new ideas and work towards common understandings of the opportunities and challenges posed by emerging and critical technologies. The event will also witness keynote address by Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison and former Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe. So, Prime Minister will be delivering the keynote address at the Sydney Dialogue on 18th, and he will speak on the theme of India's technological evolution and revolution. Well, India's Supreme Court resumed its hearing on air pollution in Delhi NCR today, miffed over Delhi government's response. The top court asked some tough questions of it. BJP too slammed the Delhi government, accusing it of spending crores of rupees on advertisements but doing little to curb pollution. Here's more.
The national capital has been under a blanket of suffocating air for the past several days. With the deteriorating air quality, the Supreme Court stand continued to be tough. While hearing the case, the Supreme Court on Wednesday reiterated to the governments clearly that it feels only meetings are being held and no concrete steps are being taken to tackle the problem of pollution. The court asked the Delhi government why the idea of allowing only public transport on the roads was not considered. The Delhi government in its defense said that vehicles in Delhi can be removed, but what will happen to the vehicles coming from NCR? The centre said through an affidavit that the vehicles being used by the centre in the national capital constitute a small part of the total vehicles. Banning these vehicles will not make any difference to the pollution. The centre says that work from home will not make any difference to pollution. The centre has advised its employees to resort to carpooling instead of using private vehicles for commuting to and from office. Environmentalists feel that more stringent measures should be taken to deal with the situation.
We are opting for symptomatic cures, for knee-jerk reactions. And this might ease on for a couple of days, 4 days, a week, but the winter period is here to stay, and this has to happen every year. So I was looking for a more holistic, comprehensive and a step-by-step approach.
Before the hearing, the Haryana government filed an affidavit in the Supreme Court and said that appropriate steps are being taken to deal with the problem. Stubble burning will be banned and 2 thermal power plants in Panipat too have been closed till November 30th. At the same time, the Punjab government decided in a meeting that a copy of the Supreme Court order to prevent pollution would be sent to the farmers' WhatsApp group. While directing the concerned states to take strict steps, the Supreme Court said that at present no order is being issued, but it does not mean that there should be any hesitation in dealing with the problem. Meanwhile, BJP has attacked the Delhi government for allegedly spending crores of rupees on advertisement while doing little to put the pollution under check in Delhi.
40,000 रुपए का कैप्सूल लिया गया, 15 करोड़ 80 लाख 36,828 रुपए खर्च किया गया एडवर्टाइजमेंट करने के लिए। और किसको, कितने अच्छे हैं अरविंद केजरीवाल जी, 40,000 रुपए का काम किया और 16 करोड़ रुपए का एडवर्टाइजमेंट किया। ये गुणा भाग करिए, जरा गणित करके देखिए, मुझे लगता है 4,000 टाइम्स काम पराली जितना किया और फसल जितना दिखाया है अरविंद केजरीवाल जी की भाषा में।
There hasn't been any improvement in pollution in Delhi and NCR on Wednesday. The next hearing in the matter will be next Wednesday. Bureau Report, DD India.
Union Minister of Commerce and Industry Piers presented the Council for Leather Exports National Export Excellence Awards. Addressing the event, he said that India's leather industry is at the forefront of innovation, design and quality. He added that stronger branding and marketing can enable exponential growth of this highly labor-intensive sector. He urged award winners and business leaders to make efforts so that made-in-India products are sold and accepted in global markets.
Leather industry, which has done such glorious work in the past, where we have certain unique propositions which India is a leader in, where we have competitive and comparative advantages when compared to the rest of the world, when our designing capabilities are recognized all over the world. Leather industry can become one such brand which India can boast across the world. Where you have all the Louis Vuittons of the world and the Pradas of the world and the Hermes of the world wanting to get high quality produce made in India.
Minister of Finance and Corporate Affairs Nirmala Sitharaman on Wednesday delivered the keynote address at CIIs Global Economic Policy Summit 2021 on rebuilding economies. She said that the new age industries will make a big difference to the growth of the Indian economy. During the session, she urged India Inc. to take more risks. She also hailed those 36 Indian companies which turned unicorns during the past 12 months.
Way in which startups have rapidly found funders, private equities, venture capitalists, all of whom gave the capacity and support that is so required for the startups that I have not seen in any other country. Within 12 full months, 36 of them qualifying as unicorns. But that's happened in India. In fact, in that is a message for all in industry, and I'm sure you're seized of it already. The nature of those who are going to be the catalyst of change for the Indian economy, even as big industries, core sector industries continue to do it, the new age industries are going to make a big difference to the Indian economy.
The second edition of the India-New Zealand bilateral cyber dialogue was held on 16th and 17th November in virtual mode. Senior officials from various government ministries and departments from both the countries participated in the cyber dialogue. The cyber dialogue discussed various aspects of existing bilateral cooperation in cyberspace, exchanged views on the latest developments on cyber issues at bilateral, regional and multilateral fora, and explored initiatives to further deepen cyber cooperation. The delegations deliberated on a wide range of topics of mutual interest and agreed to work closely with each other in the areas of cybersecurity, cybercrime and capacity building. General M.M. Naravane, Chief of Army Staff, visited the Israel Defense Forces IDF headquarters and was given a nuanced brief on multi-domain concept and force build-up. The Chief of Army Staff also witnessed a technical demonstration by IDF and exchanged a token of appreciation. General M.M. Naravane visited the Indian cemetery at Haifa in Israel and paid homage to the brave hearts of Indian Army who made the supreme sacrifice during the First World War. United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken reiterated calls for an unconditional ceasefire in the Ethiopian conflict on Wednesday on the first leg of an African trip which will take place in Kenya, Nigeria and Senegal. The war in northern Ethiopia, the coup in Sudan and Somalia's long-delayed elections dominated the agenda along with climate change as Blinken and Kenya's Foreign Minister Rachel Omamo addressed the media in Nairobi. Blinken said there was still time for a ceasefire to succeed in Ethiopia's year-old war and said the U.S. is deeply concerned with the threat the conflict could spill over to the Horn of Africa. He also urged rebellious Tigrayan-led forces to stop their threatened advance on the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa, where the African Union is headquartered. Belarusian state news agency Belta said on Tuesday evening that border guards had started moving some migrants to a reception center away from the frontier. Belarusian and Polish border guards said on Wednesday around 2,000 migrants remained at the fence. Beltale radio company showed footage of a logistics center near Grodno where migrants get humanitarian aid and warm clothes. European countries accuse Minsk of flying in thousands of migrants, mainly from the Middle East, and pushing them to cross the border illegally. The EU has called on Russia to push Belarus leader Alexander Lukashenko to resolve the crisis. Moscow denies any direct role, though it has offered to act as an intermediary. Meanwhile, Polish police and emergency vehicles rushed to the border with Belarus on Wednesday, where thousands of migrants gather in chaotic attempts to cross into the EU. German Chancellor Angela Merkel and Belarus's leader Alexander Lukashenko held a second phone call in a week on Wednesday to discuss humanitarian aid for refugees and migrants stranded at the EU-Belarus border after a decision by the EU to step up sanctions against Belarus. And with that, we come to the close of this edition of Newsnight. Thanks for watching.